Good morning, Chairman.
Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to the formal meeting of the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Alan Woodruff. I'm the Chairman of this committee. To my right is my Vice Chairman, Councillor Neil Carey, and on my left is our new Democratic Services Officer, Joseph Barker, and also present in the chamber is our Scrutiny Officer, Tracy Johnson. We'll just begin with health and safety announcement. There's no fire drill planned this morning, so in the event that the fire alarm sounds, we need to leave the council chamber through the rear doors and leave the building through reception and await further instructions. This meeting is being streamed live via the County Council's website, so your comments will remain accessible online after the meeting and can be reported by the media. With this in mind, I would like to welcome members of the public and press watching our meeting today. Can I remind everyone to ensure mobiles, laptops, iPads are on silent for the duration of the meeting? The hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman. If you wish to speak, can you please raise your hand and we will make a note. We will now move on with the formal agenda. So item 1, apologies for absence. Joseph, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillor Trevor Bridgewood, who will be replaced by Councillor Paul Wimhurst for this meeting only. I've also received apologies from Councillor Kellum Cook, who will be replaced by Councillor Stephen Rowe for this meeting only.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of councillors' interests. Members of this committee are reminded that they only need to declare any relevant interests which have not been declared on their declaration of pecuniary interests form. If you become aware of an interest at any point during the meeting, you can declare it then. Any interests declared will be recorded within the minutes. Do any members wish to declare any interests? No? Excellent. Well, we'll move on. Item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting of the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee. This is to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting of the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 22nd of July 2025 as a correct record. The minutes can be found on pages 5 to 18 of the agenda pack. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Whittaker and a seconder? Councillor Robinson. We'll now vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you. Those minutes are agreed, and I'll sign them at the end. Item 4 is announcements by the Chairman, the Executive Councillors and Lead Officers. I have no announcements to make today. Are there any Executive Councillors that wish to make any statements? No? No, thank you. Finally, are there any announcements from any of the senior officers? No, thank you. Excellent, we'll move on. So moving on to the main items of business, we will firstly be sitting as the Crime and Disorder Scrutiny Committee under Section 19 of the Crime and Justice Act 2006 for item 5 on the agenda. So item 5 is the Stay Safe Partnership Annual Report. This report is on pages 19 to 26 and provides an overview of the achievements of the Stay Safe Partnership during the 24 to 25 academic year. The partnership is responsible for providing prevention education in schools across Lincolnshire. The actions required by this committee are to review the content of the report and offer comments on the continued delivery of the Stay Safe Partnership project in the proposed format. This report is to be presented by Claire Newborn, Head of Community Safety. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm really pleased to be here again to deliver the annual paper to the committee. I am conscious there are some new members, so the paper is being deliberately written to give an overview of the history of the partnership as well as its recent achievements in the recent academic year. So really just to familiarise the committee, the Stay Safe Partnership has been in existence for just over 10 years now, which is quite an achievement, I think. It was commissioned really, I suppose, by the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership and the Lincolnshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership in response to a number of identified issues at the time with delivery of interventions in schools. Some of that was, for example, a lack of clarity about what was being delivered in schools across the county, potentially some questionable delivery of messaging and material in schools. And so what was devised was, as I say, a partnership response to some of these issues to ensure that we delivered a coordinated programme of workshops and that the content of the material was agreed and was consistent then across the county. And these workshops then also supported the strategic objectives of those partnership forums. So again, the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership has prevention and early intervention as one of its kind of primary deliverables, and the Stay Safe Partnership is a critical vehicle through which that prevention activity is delivered. The preventative education obviously contributes to safeguarding children from harm, and specifically the Stay Safe Partnership contributes to the strategic priorities of the Children's Safeguarding Partnership to reduce online harm and the impact of sexual and physical harm on children. And then finally, the domestic abuse, Lincolnshire's Domestic Abuse Partnership has a domestic abuse strategy, and specifically, again, the Safer Lincolnshire Partnership activity delivers under their prevention priority. So what I've tried to do within the paper is describe what's kind of quite a complex area of activity. So as a partnership, of which the County Council is one, obviously there's 6 core delivery partners, County Council being one, we collectively deliver what we call Stay Safe Days to schools. So that's a full day of intervention delivered by the range of partners, Fire and Rescue, some of my colleagues on my right-hand side here. We deliver those modules to children within schools on the same day. But then what I've also tried to do is capture other activity that those partners provide within schools, including ourselves. So the Stay Safe team within Lincolnshire County Council contribute to those Stay Safe days, but obviously there is a much broader offer from that team of staff, and I've tried to articulate that within the report. I always like to think we're kind of the victims of our own success. So year on year, the take-up of our modules grows year on year. It's probably no surprise to people that the only year that we saw that not be the case was during COVID lockdown, when schools were closed, and the team responded to that collectively, the partnership team, by actually converting a lot of the material that would have been delivered in schools into an online offer so that teachers and pupils could still benefit, but obviously there was an impact in terms of delivery in those critical years. This academic year that we're reporting on, 24-25, we've had over 100,000 students and staff benefiting from these preventative education workshops. I've tried to then describe the Stay Safe days and what that looks like depending on the year group. As I say, because our interventions is age appropriate, does then follow the curriculum to ensure that what is delivered to 11, 12-year-olds through Stay Safe workshops is different to what would be delivered to 14, 15-year-olds, for example. What I would say is that over the years, it's become increasingly apparent that there was a need to engage with a younger audience. So sometimes we were delivering interventions at secondary school and almost missing that critical opportunity for those young people, those children and young people to receive these messages. And so the partnership has developed a intervention offer to primary schools as well now. And again, very different to what you'd see delivered in secondary schools, probably understandably in terms of the age of those pupils and making sure that that is engaging but very much age appropriate. So I don't intend to repeat here some of the figures. Hopefully you will tell me if that doesn't read very well, but do let me know if at the end if you have any questions in respect to some of the figures. But one of the things I just wanted to draw out was, in terms of these Stay Safe days, is what we've also started to record just prior to 2000 was the number of disclosures that are made by students. So it isn't at all unusual that we will be delivering work on, say, healthy relationships. And as part of that delivery, either on the day or post immediately kind of afterwards through the teachers, that children will then approach us to disclose that actually what we're talking about is something that they're experiencing. And sometimes that's the first time that they've appreciated that it's an issue. And this, we obviously, in terms of safeguarding them, if that's necessary, we leave that with the school and the safeguarding leads, but we can also ensure that those children, young people are able to access services, support services where that's necessary. So, as I say, just working through the report, some key highlights is we had every year we do have a competition that we run with schools to get them engaged in the subject matter, and this year we celebrated Safer Internet Day with a competition. Again, there are some links there within the report if you would like to see what the children produced. Always very impressive. We have parental engagement workshops, online workshops, because again we recognise that parents are key and critical in terms of reinforcing some of the safety messages to their children, but we often get requests from parents, particularly when it comes to online safety, that they sometimes feel quite ill-equipped, that they're not tech savvy, and they would welcome some information and advice and guidance around how they can help keep their children safe. So we have some sessions directed for those, that, and we get a good, increasingly we keep getting a good take-up of those sessions. I suppose one of the other things just to note that our engagement with children does give us access to, we have 100% bookings across certainly secondary schools this year, and that gives us access to quite a significant number of children. So what we do is there is an immediate evaluation after the session. So it used to be paper, but we've moved away from that, and they can provide us through tablets or through QR codes their view of the session to make sure, and we take that on board to make sure it's relevant and engaging, and we respond to comments that are shared about the nature of the session. But in evaluating that session content, we also ask them about to share their views on how safe they feel within their communities. What we then do is, where that is raised, and there's a screenshot there of a portal that we have where we collate that information and then graphically kind of map that across the county. We share those results with, for example, neighbourhood policing teams and district council community safety colleagues, so that we ensure that the experiences of young people is then contributed and fed back to those who actually can actively do something about that. So sometimes we do get some feedback to say that young people are concerned about or feeling unsafe in certain parts of the town centre. It talks about lighting or lack of lighting, should I say, for example. And you'll see there that there is an example for North Kesteven District Council where they used the data directly that we'd provided from pupils to access and secure some Safer Streets money, and that was used to upgrade CCTV in camera locations. And again, so it's really good to see that where young people had identified they had a cause for concern, that we heard that and that actually resulted in some meaningful action. So I suppose I'm going to leave it there because I want to leave you plenty of opportunity for question. I suppose just to say in the coming year, of which we're already in, the academic year 25-26, and it is just to say that we are kind of the Stay Safe Partnership, are considered kind of the primary deliverer of preventative education in Lincolnshire schools. We have what we think is a really strong kind of reputation within schools, and that's, I suppose, reinforced by our bookings that we get. And for the coming year, of which, as I say, we're at 93% of all secondary schools have taken up the offer of that intervention, which is quite impressive. So I'm going to leave that there, as I say, and welcome any questions that members might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Any members would like to speak on the item? Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Claire. Within the report, I think on page 22, we see a significant spike, as you've identified in the report, in 2021-22 of increased disclosures, and you've attributed that to the likely impact of COVID. Could you elaborate slightly on that? What do you mean by the impact of COVID in that context? I think what I'm trying to understand is was there any specific themes of heightened reports?
I think one of the things that was coming through quite strongly, obviously, I think most experiences through those years is most things went online, if they weren't already, but particularly so during COVID. So what we saw was an uplift in concerns in the online space, so people feeling, even people's experiencing of bullying by other peers, again, kind of changed in its dynamic in that was no longer really face-to-face, but that was still taking place in the online space. And actually for some young people that was really difficult for them to manage because, you know, they felt there was little escape from that experience, quite negative experience. So I know that was particularly acute, really, was concerns around online harms generally, which should be, I suppose, of no surprise given, as I say, the nature of, you know, the direction of travel at the moment is things are becoming very virtual in nature, aren't they, across the board?
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brockway.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for the paper. It's very interesting, actually. Two quick questions, please, if I may. On page 21, it shows where the age groups to which these different workshops have been delivered. And I was very interested to see that the antisocial behaviour with gang recruitment has been delivered to year 7. Now, my instinct would be that children in years 9 and 10 who are going out and about more freely would also need that delivery, unless I'm mistaking something here. So could I ask about that first and then come back to my second one, please? Thank you.
Sorry, I keep having to take my glasses on and off. Thank you, Councillor Brockway. Yeah, I suppose our experience has shown over the years, it is interesting to see this table because we're very responsive to the needs of pupils and we're not complacent. So we're always very looking at, in terms of delivery, not just the nature of delivery, but actually when does that need to be delivered, and that historically used to be delivered at a later age, but as I say, our experience is that we were often kind of preaching to the converted, if you like. So we were delivering and they were saying, well, this is no news to me, you know, this is something that I've been experiencing for a number of years. So that's why we take that on board. And again, through that collective conversation, we agree to bring that intervention to an earlier age group, because again, this is about preventing issues. So that age group that you've described, Councillor Brockway, are probably experiencing the issues, and the idea is we want to get in there earlier. Hence why it might feel premature, but it's absolutely not.
Thank you. No, I don't think it's premature. I would support you putting it in year 7, but also the later years. So, but no, your answer, I understand now. Thank you. On page 25, there's a very interesting table. Now, it shows clearly that you get a much better response to your surveys from the south part of the county than from the north. So West Lindsey is a very poor response, whereas SK and South Holland, much better. Still very low, but much better response. I'm interested on why you think that may be, but also I wonder, do you have information about the different response levels between schools? Because it's not just about a whole county, there'll be a differential, won't there, between the schools? So 2 questions: difference between the areas, any reason for it, and do we have information on the different responses between schools? Thank you.
Thank you again, Councillor Brockway. Very, very good question. I don't think we've seen any particular themes in terms of parts of the county where we seem to have improved responses. It can vary year on year. So whilst you're seeing that picture this academic year, in terms of the survey, it'll have looked slightly different last year. So there's no commonality year on year. So it's difficult. It's something that although we're really pleased and proud of the responses we do get, because everyone's really valuable and useful to us, we're not complacent. We appreciate there's still quite a bit of work to do on that, because still the percentage of pupils who do respond to the survey in comparison to the percentage of pupils is still quite small. So that's something that we spend a lot of time and energy improving upon. And yes, we do have that down to schools that respond as well, so that actually we do make approaches to particular schools that do very well in terms of their returns, about what that might be about. Some of that, I think, is that some teachers are just very proactive in giving their pupils time to do that, kind of before or after a lesson. So they're actively encouraging the participation in these surveys. But again, we also then make approaches to those schools where sometimes we literally get nothing, to see what we can be doing and what they can be doing to improve on that. Just because, again, otherwise we miss the opportunity to get that feedback from that part of the county, from the school, from the children in that part of the county. And they become a silent voice, don't they? So, yeah, still much work to be done. Sorry, did you have a follow-up question?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Interestingly, yesterday I was at a session in North Kesteven, and they needed a survey done, so they put QR codes up on the screen. We all did it with our phone, 100% response. Is there any way you could do that at the end of a session? I know the kids and phones in schools and all the rest of it, but they actually got, 100%, and it was so dead easy. Is there any option for you to engage that sort of thing?
So that I think, is that the Stay Safe delivery that you've, yes, so it was something so we do use that. We provide, we get them back at the end of the session, so we provide tablets so that children can complete the surveys on the tablets, and we also provide the QR codes so that they can go on their phone. One of the challenges that we actually have is to ensure that we don't kind of do too much surveying, this can be a crowded space, because sometimes it isn't just us that is actually trying to engage children in these surveys. So sometimes it's about the timing of it, but yeah, we do use kind of modern technology. As I say, it literally used to be paper and pen, but yeah, we're much more modern in how we approach it, but it's still very dependent on their keenness to do it. And as I say, sometimes it's just the championing championing of it by teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Claire, for that report. You say that you get into 98% of the schools. Does this include private and religious schools?
I could give you a breakdown of the types of schools that we get into. So the Stay Safe offer is open to all schools. We don't differentiate. So it's available to all schools, including private schools. What I would say is that I would say over the 10 years, sometimes the take-up from private schools has been very poor. But it is something that's available to them and that we do promote because, again, we wouldn't want any child to be precluded from the interventions. So it is an available offer. But and just to say that in terms of the offer, certainly in terms of the Stay Safe days, each of the schools are able to have 2 of those Stay Safe days at cost-free. There isn't a cost to that. If they want more, and some schools do, come to us and say, could we have 3 or 4 this year? That's at cost, but otherwise the first 2 sessions, which as I say, the 98% have taken up, that's cost-free, so there isn't necessarily a cost implication to them either. So I'm not quite sure why that's not taken up. Again, we're really good at promoting it, but we're dependent on them accessing it.
Is this each year? Are they offered this
Yes.
every year?
2
They are.
every
2
year.
3 days
Yeah,
every
yeah,
year.
yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chair. Well, just to start off by congratulating you, it's a really good report and the information in it is really impressive. It's obviously a very high-performing service and I'm really pleased to see that parents are taking it up as well as the children. That's really good. So I've made some notes here. I'll come back to it, but I was going to ask you, when you said just now about the cost, how much that cost is. I just wanted to say as well, I think it's about 18 months ago, I had a one-to-one team session with one of your team because I wanted to find out more about what was happening in my area. And I just wondered if for new people here, if that's available still to everybody. I literally found out who had taken it up, what they'd been doing, and because I found it really interesting, it's useful as well to know. But can you tell me as well, what is the cost if people choose to pay for extra sessions, just because I want to know?
Well, now you've asked me a question I don't know the answer to, Councillor Lee. And I should do because I hold the budget. But what we do is make sure that's on par with the charging model for Lincolnshire County Council's EduLinks. So again, we don't, in terms of what we're asking of schools when we do charge, it's consistent in terms of other offerings across the council, but I'm happy to come back to you on that because there's nothing secret about that. I can let you know what that charge is, and certainly I would welcome, as the team would. I'm going to just it's gone. Catherine Smith, who's the coordinator for the Stay Safe partnership and the LCC team. It's probably who you met, Councillor Lee, but she would be over the moon to spend some time with you, either one-to-one, but equally if anyone does want to come and observe a session, again in your locality, so you can see what's being delivered to your schools, then I know Councillor Rowe, I think you've been, haven't you, and Councillor McGonigal, you're diarised, aren't you, to come, but as I say, more than welcome, as all our partners are. Do come and observe our work. We'd be welcome, we'd love to host you.
Can I just say, can we arrange that then? I'd very much like to do that.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
pick that up straight away, Councillor Lee.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I left secondary school in 2018, so I'm sure I was exposed to some of the sessions or similar ones up in North East Lincolnshire. And I think these are incredibly important for us with many issues, especially video recreations of drug gang recruitment and knife crime has stuck with me for something to look out for, so they're no doubt important. I think effective videos are the best way to really show young people the issues and how easily avoidable these situations can be. However, looking through some of the sessions, I have flagged up one in particular which I've sent to Councillor McGonigal to review, The mini police positively different for year 5 and 6 session includes a section which states, for some people, gender identity does not correspond with our biological sex. Now, I'm of the opinion you can be whatever you want when you are an adult, as long as it doesn't affect others. It's your life to live, and I don't think anybody should stop you. But putting this in the heads of primary school children and making them question their gender identity just causes them confusion. Are any or all sessions like this given parental consent, and are these clearly outlined to parents as with contentious topics? Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to pick up the bit about parental consent and then I'll move to Martin because we spoke about this earlier. In terms of the parental consent, at the time of booking, it's really clear to schools what the conditions of the booking is. And that's one of the conditions, is that we're expecting schools to have advised the parents that this intervention is taking place so that it's not a surprise to them, I would hope. And that's something that if they have a view about in terms of their child being present at, then that's the opportunity for them to have said so. So we're not obviously able to engage with each and every parent, but we're very clear with schools that we'd expect that conversation or you know, articulating that parents to have already been done before we arrive. Just to be clear on that. But Martin, did you want to pick up the other bit?
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much. The school input that you refer to is one that's delivered by police. So it's a mini police element. So they kind of control the content of that element. It's not something that's done by Lincolnshire County Council. It is, you can book that through the Lincolnshire County Council portal because we try and bring all educational pieces together. However, we did make a kind of a decision earlier on in the year about reviewing that in terms of having it as the Stay Safe partnership elements of it, as opposed to the wider portal bit. So we'll pick that up as well. Just in terms of that, that positively different piece, you know, policing will say it's in line with the national curriculum. The school does send out to parents what is the content of that particular input to schools. It does meet in line with the national curriculum around PSHE, so that personal, social health and economic education, recognising it's policing's decision in terms of what they put in that in terms of a partnership, but certainly we've had confirmation that it does go out to parents. Of course, there's no guarantee that those parents then actually read what it is, because they probably get lots of things through from school. So I think there's probably a different way that messaging can be made, so parents are fully aware of what happens. And again, that's reviewed every year. So it's not a one-off opportunity. They do get opportunities to say, let's have a, you know, once it's in, it's not. It's kind of reviewed all the time in terms of the appropriateness and the delivery in schools, and then making sure we've got the parents' voice.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Claire, as well. It's a wonderful report. I really enjoyed reading it, and as you probably you are aware, I did send you an email with some questions and queries looking into it in a bit more deeper fashion. And I would just share as well, my local mini police team in my area, about 2 years ago, the PCSO told me a wonderful story of how they were checking the speed of cars going through the estate, and the kids were having him pull any that were speeding over and sort of reading them their rights, if you like, at the side of the road. And one of the children actually ended up pulling over her own dad for speeding, which I just think the power in that sort of message is great. And of course, those kids, that story just erupted. So, you know, for focus on things, these things are so important to make sure that we are engaging with children and in a unique way that's actually, I suppose, to some extent play-based, because that's really powerful, and certainly for adults as well. I think to some extent it's far more fun to do things. Most kids, I don't think, would thoroughly enjoy this sort of environment in here, as many adults probably don't as well, including myself. But I really did enjoy going through the videos that Emma and the team have made, and the only thing I would say is that I wasn't aware of them until I read through this report, and I feel that, and it sort of connects in here, that the project's being done on fake news with the primary school children, where they've sort of made their own news broadcasts about fake news. I mean, that's a brilliant thing to sort of teach kids that actually not everything that you see online or on the news is true, and that you have to be really careful about looking into that.
but the videos themselves, there's not a huge amount of views on them on the YouTube format where they tend to sit. And I just wonder whether actually, are we engaging in a way that sort of meets the needs of young people in trying to get them to see these videos, and young parents as well, because of course a lot of the fake news, as an example, but not just on this, it tends to come through other social media portals, and I think it would be wonderful if we could find a way of sort of engaging with children in things that we know are positive, that are sending out a good message and clear guidance for them in the future. I just wonder what focus there is from the team and the wider partnership on trying to get those messages out there in a unique format that's good for those children to take on board, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Christopher, and thank you for your emails, and much appreciated your interest in the subject matter. We're constantly, certainly for me, I never cease to be amazed how much the team know about the tech savviness of the staff. So they are very well versed in terms of various social media platforms, and again, because of how we engage with the young people, we're very at the forefront of which platforms are the popular platforms, so that we remain ahead of the game, if you like, because it changes really quickly. I always thought, you know, WhatsApp was it, and you know, the kids will soon tell me that, oh, that's old school, we're all on this platform now, which I'd never heard of. So we do explore those, and again, with the comms digital team, we're always having those conversations about how can we raise the profile and make sure that we're sharing this material and exposing it to the widest number of pupils and parents. But any ideas or suggestions that anybody else might have, I'd be happy to hear them, because and sometimes it's the simplest kind of suggestion as to that works the best, as you say. We have a number of those who come to the parental engagement events. They come to those events, so there'll be a particular figure given in the report. But even those who don't show, because they've enrolled for the session, what that means is that they're able to access it at a later stage. We don't always get those numbers. We get the numbers of those who actually turned up on the evening, kind of thing. But a lot of people will say, because of my work shift pattern or whatever, I'm not able to come on the day or on the evening, but I want the link because I want to be able to access it. So I think some of it might be that we're underplaying how much it is accessed sometimes, some of those materials, but it's just the reporting function on it is not as slick as we'd like it to be. But
Thank you. Am I right just to follow up? So, and that's great. So I'm certainly not the one to give you any ideas on social media sort of engagement and other bits and pieces, but I am aware we've got things like Zest Theatre and The Zone and all these other things that are working with children in that way. And of course, they're led by creatives who absolutely know how to do that. But your team, I think Emma and the team have clearly shown that we've got a strong team of creators there working on that as well. One other thing that stood out in the report to me as well was where we were asking young people what the safety concerns were, and night lighting and parks and drugs seem to be the key factors in that. It made me really sad actually to see that a reasonable percentage of children were saying that actually they had anxiety around going onto parks, and I'd be interested to know how this work that's being done and that data is then being utilised moving forward. And of course, I appreciate it's not just our teams, that would then be down to the police from a safety perspective and other things as well, and certainly the district councils and parish councils to some extent that are responsible for those parks. But it'd be interesting just to get a little bit of a steer from you on how that data is then utilised and moved forward, and what checks and balances there are on that.
so, as I say, we work really closely with police colleagues, district colleagues across the board in terms of community safety, but certainly in the kind of stay safe space. So, as I'd mentioned, we do share that feedback with across the partnership through the Safer Lincolnshire partnership reporting structure, if we like. So that's shared quite broadly across partners, but critically, just because it enables them to actually do something practical in response to what they've heard is that is shared with those neighbourhood policing teams in terms of anything that they might be able to do in that space, and district council community safety colleagues. And then what we actually do, again, because we're really keen to understand how that feedback has been utilised, if indeed it has, is we then go back to them and ask them to let us know what they've done, if anything, with that piece of intelligence. So, because what we like to be able to do is to let the children know that, you know, we don't do that bit by bit, but we do kind of a summary. We have like a newsletter that goes out to schools, and we like to be able to say, you know, you said, we did. Again, that's something that in terms of that kind of feedback loop, I'm not saying it's perfect. We need to get responses back from those partners in terms of action and activity. They really welcome the feedback, and they do assure us that they do listen to it and do something with it. Sometimes the reporting back to us is the bit that fails, but the administrative bit. But as I say, I'm happy to provide something post this meeting to give you a sense of what was raised and what happened as a consequence. Some practical examples.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. As Claire's already said, I already attended one of these events. It was for the 11-year-olds. It was at one of our local academies. I just dropped into all the different sessions, much to the embarrassment of my granddaughter, who was sat in one in her first year at the school. I spoke to her afterwards. I spoke to the teachers afterwards, and they were very enthusiastic. I didn't know whether they would feel that it was an intrusion into their teaching time, but very much not so. The content was good, the interaction with the pupils was good, and the feedback afterwards was also good. I'd just like to congratulate Claire on what they do. I've said it before here. It really does make a difference. People do interact, they do get involved. Just like to say, Claire, I'd like to go to the other school to one of the senior events, which I understand is just a little bit more hard-hitting, or in fact a lot hard-hitting. So, well done. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe, and I'll take that feedback back to the team and the wider partnership. They'll appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. Claire, in your report you mentioned, or after your report you mentioned you must have parental consent. Now, if this is, I presume, asked for by the school, if a child is not given consent, do the schools go back to them again and ask a second time before excluding that child from the session?
To be honest, I wouldn't know, because that's something that, as I say, we put in the hands of the schools to manage as per their kind of policy and procedure. We just make it clear that, I suppose, in terms of our intervention, whether we're doing that as the County Council Stay Safe team or whether we're doing that as part of the Stay Safe multi-agency day, that the children who are receiving that intervention are that the parents are at least aware that that intervention's taking place and are okay with that. But apologies, I don't know the detailed answer to your question. I'd have to get, I suppose, there's so many schools across the council, there'd be significant variance, I imagine, as well, in terms of how that's managed. So there might be a multitude of responses to that question. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't answer.
Okay,
thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Hello, Claire. Councillor Rose sort of beat me to it, really, because I was going to congratulate you as well. It's just such a great joy to have such a positive report to Scrutiny. I was on Community Scrutiny in 2014 when it was developed and brought to us at the time, and it seemed such a big venture that you were going to go on and to try and get into schools and get schools to accept this as a programme. So I'm just over the moon, and I'd like to congratulate you and all the core services that go into the schools, and that to see that the take-up from the schools has just improved so much, because at the beginning it was trying to get the foot in the door was a bit of a struggle. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Councillor Carey.
Hello, Claire. Just one question. In your workshop, you've got knife crime for year 9. Would that be in consideration to extend that to the other years, as knife crime is on the rise throughout the whole of the country? And we get reports back that children, very, very young now, are carrying as well. Would that be a consideration for other years, or just year 9 for the moment?
What I would say is that, again, that's actually delivered through Lincolnshire Police. So there's that's not just plucked out of thin air in terms of the year group that's delivered to. Again, that would be what we understand to be kind of the target age group for that delivery. What I would say is that although this is obviously describing a universal offer to schools, we're not averse to those approaches from schools who might have a particular issue, not just with knife crime, but with any kind of subject matter, to say, actually, can we look at something, not bespoke particularly, but yeah, we've got a particular issue that we would welcome your support in, looking at tackling with children. So we're not averse to that. I suppose the other thing to mention is what's connected to this is that there is the Happening resource in Sleaford. So there's actually quite a bit of intervention and resources going into tackling knife crime as a county issue. Councillor Carey by Lincolnshire Police, and again we support that initiative in Sleaford. So it isn't just what's happening through the Stay Safe partnership, but there are other strands of activity to really bolster that messaging that goes to a wider age group than just what's described in this paper. And Martin might be able to add some detail.
Yeah, I think Claire covered it off really. So the sort of the Stay Safe element is very much targeted at universal offer, where the Happening is very much targeted to those children who we may feel may be involved in at some stage throughout their entire school life, involved in knife crime or carrying knife crime, and those that certainly go through the criminal justice process. Kind of we use that as a session. I would highly recommend, if you wish to have a look around the Happening site, which is the old police station at Sleaford. It's an immersive kind of educational piece for learning for young people to kind of have a look at in terms of our knife crime interventions. Highly well supported throughout the county and recognised as a kind of a leading sort of anti-knife crime, anti-carrying kind of initiative. So if any of council members want to have a walk through that immersive experience, so you can see firsthand what it is that it's doing, so it goes much further than beyond the universal office, and it's very much a kind of targeted, and again it's open to all schools for them to kind of bring their children. It's sort of 12, 13 children at a time, so it's it's not quite on a one-to-one basis, but it's very much that way inclined. So yeah, so if you want to have a look around the Happening, then just get in touch with Claire and we can make those arrangements.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chair. Claire, do you have a list of schools, of every school that you've been to? I was just wondering if there are some in my constituency you haven't been to, maybe we could advise the schools that it would be worthwhile them taking it up.
Thank you. Yes, we do. So we have a dashboard that all of that information is inputted onto. So at a click of a button, we can get that feedback for an academic year and then previous years. That dashboard hasn't been in existence since Stay Safe's been in existence though, so it'll only take us back so far. But certainly if you would appreciate an understanding of those schools in your locality, we can get that information to you. If you let me know the area you're representing, I can get that information for you.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to I'm not here to back up this presentation, but the happening event in Sleaford is first class. It's well worth going round. It's interesting the feedback that you get from the young children with regards to knife crime, but also with regards to they have a prison cell there. And one of the biggest worries that I was told was that when they go to the toilet, there's a spy hole that can see them. It's just surprising the things that come out. But it is a real good event. If you've got an hour to spend going through there, it's well worth it. I can't push it further. Thank you.
No, thank you. Very good. Any other speakers? Happy? Okay, excellent. Well, I think thank you, Claire, for the report. Thank you, everyone, for their input. I propose that we've been assured on the performance and progress made by the Stay Safe Partnership, and we support the continued delivery of the Stay Safe Partnership project in the proposed format, and we receive a further update in 12 months' time. Can we please raise our hands if we agree? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. That's agreed. Thank you, Claire. Moving on, we're now going to revert back to sitting as the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee for the remainder of the meeting and move on to item 6. So item 6 is His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, HMI CFRS, inspection of Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue progress update. This report will be found on pages 27 to 68 of the agenda pack and provides an overview of the progress against actions following the HMI CFRS inspection in 2023 and outlines plans in preparation for the inspection of 2025 and 26. The actions required by this committee are to review and comment on the progress made against the actions to date and seek assurance on the preparation being undertaken for the 25-26 inspection. The report will be presented by Mark Baxter, our Chief Fire Officer. We also have the Assistant Chief Fire Officer, Ryan Stacey, in attendance to help answer questions. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you. So I'll just give an overview summary of our progress to date, and as I said, a bit of headlines in regards to what we're expecting with the upcoming inspection. So our previous inspection, as highlighted in the report, gave us the gradings, which for ourselves we got 3 goods, 4 adequate and 4 requires improvements. Also within the report there, they reported on our progress against a previous cause of concern, which was in the 2021 inspection, which related to areas within values and culture. They determined that we still needed more work to do within that cause of concern, and so the work that we continued to do in that resulted in the HMI coming into the organisation in July 2024 for a 4-day bespoke inspection looking at our specific progress against our cause of concern. We was pleased to get the outcome of that in September last year, which identified that we'd done considerable work in these areas, and that cause of concern had been discharged and was no longer deemed as a concern. In regards to the other areas within the report from 2023, it was identified that we had 14 areas for improvement. We put together quite a robust service improvement plan, which was managed through our leadership teams and administered through our service improvement manager, where we had monthly updates in regards to progress against each and every one of those 14 areas. Breakdown of the actions that we aligned to assure that we could address those areas for improvements are all within the appendix. And so in the last 18 months, we've been making steady progress through those with a deadline for us to be able to have closed all of those areas for improvement prior to the next inspection. The progress to date is we have all but 2 areas for improvements completely signed off. The 2 areas for improvement is area for improvement 13, which relates to ensuring that we have an effective mechanism in place for succession planning, including senior leadership roles. The specific action that we're just finalising is the completion of a strategic workforce plan. So we are already at 80% completion on that, and we've assured ourselves that we will have that strategic workforce plan in place and published by the time the next round of inspection. We have been working closely with LCC's HR and leadership development teams as well to ensure that our strategic workforce plan not only just aligns to what our future needs are for Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue, but it also supports the LCC's people plan as well. And the other area for improvement, number 14, which relate to implementing a specific process to identify, develop and support high potential staff and aspiring leaders. We are at 90% completion in regards to that, and the outstanding section is just to do a final review of our internal promotions and progression policies, which has been completed, and we're just doing internal consultation for that to be going out for publication. So again, we will be assured that that will be published and available prior to the next coming inspection. So in essence, we've put quite a robust assurance and scrutiny programme in place to address the areas for improvement. That has been that will be a specific focus for the next inspection. The inspectorates will be coming in and looking at what have we done since the last inspection to address those areas of improvement. We will have documents that will identify the specific actions we've done on each and every one of those areas for improvements and what the impact was, and then we will have each and every of those individually signed off, and we'll be presenting them to the HMI when we have our strategic briefing with them in December of this year. Notwithstanding that, within our service improvement plan, we're looking at wider areas where we continually improve, linking in regards to our annual service plan that identifies what we are committed to address our priorities, that addresses our strategic objectives within our community risk management plan. So we have a wider plan that we have a monthly monitoring of progress against our performance, which again we will be sharing with the inspectorate to ensure that we've got good governance in our progress. So an overview, to summarise on that, we're comfortable that we've made good progress against the 2023 inspection. We're confident that we've been able to address the identified areas for improvement, and we feel that we've got sufficient scrutiny, assurance and governance in place to be able to present to the inspectors when they come through. So that kind of links us into the next inspection programme, which is coming soon. So this is round 4 of the inspection. Some of the key milestones that we know that's coming up. So we will having a staff survey that will be produced by HMI. We will be launching that through the organisation, and it's a staff survey which will be anonymised for staff to be able to feed into the inspectorate team in regards to various areas of what the full inspection will be asking questions of. So the HMI will be taking feedback directly from our staff members in regards to the progress of Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue. We have quite a significant document collection in the middle of November, and that is us supplying the HMI with all of our strategic documents, policies, and various other pieces of information they require to be able for them to start the assessment of the progress of Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue. As I mentioned, in the middle of December, we have a strategic briefing, and that's when the whole of the inspection team and the HMI, they come into the organisation, and we will be briefing them on regards to our strategic progress over the last 2 years, and identifying where we see there's been good progress, and also identifying actually if there's any areas where we think there's more work to be done. So that helps them to again have a wider picture in regards to Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue. And then the main part of the about the 10-week inspection program starts with a physical inspection from the first week of January, where we will have a hybrid approach, where we'll have the teams that will be physically coming into speaking to all departments within the organisation, and also they will be doing some hybrid, as in through teams as well, inspections and interviews of our teams, but that will be over a 10-week period for the full inspection. There's a couple of changes that they are identifying for this round. There's 3 areas that is going to be a new work streams for the inspectorate. One is how the impact of the Fire and Rescue Authority's governance, oversight and scrutiny impacts Fire and Rescue Service. It's important to say this is an area that they won't be given a graded judgment of it, and they're being clear it won't be having a judgment in regards to the actual governance models, but it will be looking at what is the effective impact of the governance, oversight and scrutiny of the Fire and Rescue Service. They will be specifically looking at leadership at all levels within the Fire and Rescue Service. Previous inspections, they've really been focusing on senior leadership and how that's had an impact within the service. So they're going to be widening that scope to looking at leadership at every single level within the Fire and Rescue Service, and have a judgment on how effective that is in regards to driving through improvement. And then finally, they will be looking at how the Fire and Rescue Service works to improve community resilience. That's really going to be in the fact of how we're supporting with wider partners, particularly within the local resilience forum, and how we are supporting with emergency planning, and how we're ensuring we play our part that we have got resilient communities in regards to how we deal with major incidents and events. So through the inspection program, they will be, and this will be again part of one of the new work streams, they will be looking at interviewing various levels of scrutiny and assurance, through all the way through members maybe of this scrutiny committee, through executive councillors, and also for myself and the senior leadership team, to ensure that how we have got good oversight and scrutiny in regards to those areas. So that will be something that we will be preparing the organisation, and to ensure that everybody's in the best place to be able to support the inspection teams. And then finally, just to reiterate, there will still be utilising the grading systems of outstanding, good, adequate, requires improvement and inadequate. But with the slight changes where previously those judgments were against 11 areas within the inspection, that's going to be reduced just to 10 areas. The reason being they've amalgamated, they had 2 separate judgments for future affordability and the best use of resources. The inspection team are just going to amalgamate that into just a 1 grading judgment. So the judgment will be about how we have future affordability and how we use our resources. So there will be only 10 graded judgments rather than what we've had previously of 11. I'll probably pause at that point, Chair, so I'm open to any questions in regards to our preparations and our progress from the last report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Would any members like to speak on the report? Councillor Lee?
It's only a quick one, just to say thank you for keeping us safe. It's a really good report, but thank you for everything that you do. And I'm pleased to see on page 31 that you're starting to get more women. It just makes the whole thing more balanced. I know, this has been going on for quite some time, and it's not unique to Lincolnshire, but I'm pleased to see as well the progress in the areas for concern.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lee, and absolutely we'll pass that feedback in regards to the team. And just on the report, that specific point, we've really had a focus in regards to positive action across the county, and the teams within our recruitment, talent, learning and development teams have really had a focus in regards to trying to make sure that Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue is an attractive employer for everybody, to be honest with you. So there's a little bit of myth busting and a little bit to try to say how much we have got to offer as an employer, and how much we can offer in regards to supporting community. So yeah, it's nice that we're making some steady progress, but more work to do, absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Brockway.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations. Fantastic work. I don't know how you managed it, to be honest, but it really is a brilliant outcome. Thank you. I noticed on page 48 that when it comes to developing the talent, you're making sure that you develop from within as well, which I think is always a good and healthy sign. When you're developing people for succession planning, is there ever any opportunity for them to do, say, a short sabbatical in another service or in another area to gain different experience? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It's a really good point, and it's something that we're looking at quite a lot, really. Where we've really developed our offer in regards to our internal people is that we've really launched what called talent conversations, really understanding what people's potential are, really understanding what people's aspirations are as well. And I think we've moved a long way from probably what was traditionally many years ago, where actually to get progression you need to go on a course X, Y and Z and obtain that level of qualification. That's still vitally important, and we still need to do that. But also we recognise there's an awful lot of learning and experience we can gain from other sectors, through secondments and areas which is going to be more bespoke. So we are going through that process at the moment. One thing we also need to bear in mind, which I'll be honest with you is a challenge for us, is that we are a lean fire and rescue service, and it is sometimes a challenge for us to release people to go off and work with other areas. However, that's a challenge that we are facing, and that's a challenge that we're going to meet, because we don't want that to be a barrier for people to get valued experience and valued development, which will only benefit Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue in the future. But it is a bit of a challenge to be able to release people at this moment in time, because we are lean.
Thank you, Mark. I just had a question really. Has there been a significant cost in implementing the service improvement plan?
To continue with improvement, there is going to be a cost, absolutely, and there may be some things that we're going to probably touch on the next item within the Grenfell Tower recommendations. To progress, to improve, to ensure that we're aligned to the National Fire Chiefs Council's standards, there are some new ways of working that we are embracing and we're developing through, but we're also have our making sure that we can do it in the most effective and the most efficient way forward. So with all the work that we're doing to improve, we are linked in with, as with every other director, in regards to our medium-term financial planning, to identify what is our needs and our requirements to ensure that we can be fit for the future for a fire and rescue service. As we know, there's going to be increasing demands within fire and rescue service, and we know we need to ensure that our staff have got the right skills and they've got all the right knowledge base to ensure that they can operate effectively and probably most importantly safely. So in a short answer, yes, there is additional costs. We're working through the most effective way we can meet those demands, and then we're working with the wider county council within our medium-term financial plan to identify where they would be and what's the best way to achieve that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Mark. If everyone's happy, okay. I propose that the committee is satisfied with the progress made to date against the actions identified following the HMI CFRS inspection of Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue. And we've been ensured on the preparation being undertaken for the 25-26 inspection. Can we please raise hands if we agree? And that's unanimous. That's agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, item 7 is the Grenfell Tower Phase 1 and 2 reports and recommendations to fire and rescue authorities. This report is found on pages 69 to 76 of the agenda pack and provides an overview of progress to date on the recommendations made by Phase 1 and 2 of the Grenfell Tower Inquiry Report. The actions required by this committee or to review the report and seek assurance on the progress made by Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue on the recommendations arising from the Phase 1 and 2 Grenfell Tower inquiry reports. The report will be presented again by Mark Baxter, the Chief Fire Officer, and we'll have Ryan Stacey, Assistant Chief Fire Officer, in attendance to help answer any questions. Over to you again, Mark.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to take this opportunity to hand over to Ryan, who has been leading a lot of this work within the organisation, and also it's just also a change of tone of voice as well. You get the pleasure of Ryan's voice on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So just as a bit of background, I'm sure members of the committee will be aware, following the tragic loss of life at the Grenfell Tower incident back in June 2017, two public inquiries were convened. The first one published its recommendations in October 2019. The second part of the public inquiry published its recommendations in September of last year, so just over 12 months ago. Clearly, a huge amount of evidence was collated over a period of 7 years in order to get to a position where they were able to make recommendations. Of the recommendations that were made, 29 recommendations were made in the first report and 58 in the second. Not all of those related to the Fire and Rescue Service. The way the public inquiry is structured is that clearly they can only make recommendations to the organisations that were involved at the time. So while the recommendations were made specifically towards London Fire Brigade, the sector and indeed Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Service have taken a very critical look at the way we operate locally. We adopted within Lincolnshire a similar methodology for both reports. So we took the recommendations, we broke them down into their constituent parts. While there are only 11 or so recommendations in Phase 1, for example, a number of the recommendations said that Fire and Rescue Services should and something else. So we broke them down into further recommendations. So you may well see not a direct read across between the official recommendations that came out in the public inquiry and locally some of our action plans, which may well give twice as many actions as a result of the recommendations. So just a word of warning on that. We adopted the same approach. We went through those objectives. We wrote an action plan against each of those. The actions then came to our senior leadership team and were signed off as adequate on those occasions. As you'd imagine, with some of those recommendations, some were very quick and easy to box off. It was just the ability to provide assurance that we didn't believe that situation could arise within Lincolnshire. Others required a bit more investment and working through. An example of that within Lincolnshire is one of the recommendations that was given to London Fire Brigade was around intrinsically safe radios and the provision of intrinsically safe radios. Intrinsically safe radios work on a lower power rating, which means that they are less likely to generate a spark, and there are other measures taken at the same time. The downside of those is they clearly don't have as great a range, which when working in high-rise buildings, hospitals, big concrete, shopping centres, etc., clearly significantly limit the range of those radios. Now within Lincolnshire we don't issue intrinsically safe radios to all of our breathing apparatus teams. We have a small number of those which we use for dedicated risks where we believe that there's a need to have intrinsically safe radios. So as an example on that kind of recommendation, we were able to very quickly review the provision that we had and provide assurance that that wasn't a relevant recommendation within Lincolnshire. However, there were some other recommendations that were given, not necessarily to London Fire Brigade. There was a recommendation that was given to His Majesty's Inspector of Constabularies and Fire and Rescue Services, for example, that they go into London Fire Brigade and report on the arrangements for assessing the training of incident commanders. Now, again, as an example, while that wasn't a recommendation that was given to Fire and Rescue Services, we took the opportunity to objectively review some of our command and control training and the methods that we have in place to assure ourselves of that training. So then we were able to provide assurance and take action that the training of our commanders at all levels was suitable and sufficient. Then as an example of some of the work we've done around that, we had a very robust system in place for our level 1 commanders. So these are the commanders that initially attend incidents. So they attended several days of command and control training, followed by an operational assessment. And then after a period of time, after 2 years, they come back and have a reassessment of their skills. Those individuals who pass with an unqualified level of success against the criteria come back again in a further 2 years. Those people who fail come back within 6 months, and those individuals who pass but not with flying colours, may come back within 12 months, and that's down to the discretion of the command team to bring back some of our commanders on a more frequent basis, recognising that the experience of our commanders in terms of the number of years that they've served has decreased over time, because we're a very predominantly on-call fire and rescue service, and also the number of incidents that our commanders are going to, because the number of incidents that we're having is decreasing over time. Clearly, we need to bring our commanders back on a more frequent basis. So we are well assured that our commanders are receiving the right amount of training and it's quality assured robustly. We did, however, take the opportunity to strengthen some of our level 2 command training, so that's the tier above that, so supervisory commanders that come onto the fire ground after the incident has developed, where a greater level of command and control supervision is required. We have improved some of that command and control training so to ensure that that level is scrutinised more effectively. We've made significant changes in the training of our operational control room. So not only are we investing in the infrastructure, the mobilising systems, we've also put in place some command and control training for our fire control room. We've improved the transmission of incident data between the control room and our fire ground, specifically the recommendation related to fire survival guidance, so the handling of information from residents within a building to the fire ground itself. We've strengthened that link and made it digital, so there's real-time information. We've also ensured that we have the right radios available so we can transmit information effectively and efficiently between the fire control room and the fire ground. There are a couple of areas where we feel that there needs more work doing. They're not recommendations that have been made to Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Service. They are a recommendation made to government to establish a College of Fire. There's a bit of background to this. So back in 2003, the Fire Service Examination Board, which up until that point produced a set of qualifications for, at the time, leading firefighter, sub-officer and station officer, was abolished. So a national set of qualifications for promotion to those levels were scrapped, and they were the responsibility was pushed to local fire and rescue services. So each one of the 46 fire and rescue services at the time, now 44 fire and rescue services, were responsible for deriving their own set of standards and qualifications. Within Lincolnshire, we use the Institution of Fire Engineers to set our standard and our qualification at various levels. So we're assured that there is a level of technical underpinning competence of our staff. But there is now no longer an ability for our staff to go away and learn the content of that and bring it back. So that is an area that we want to strengthen within Lincolnshire. We also recognise that as the sector has developed tactical firefighting and tactical ventilation qualifications and skill sets, that's an area, again, we need to strengthen within Lincolnshire. And we will do through investment at our Waddington training site. We've received a good level of assurance, both through our updates to the National Fire Chiefs Council about our progress against the Grenfell recommendations, but also we've had HMIC FRS have come into the sector right across all fire and rescue services and provided updates on our progress against those recommendations. And I'm pleased to be able to give assurance that we are comfortable that we are meeting the minimum requirements against all of those recommendations through both of those reports. And I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I invite any members that wish to speak. Any questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Because of the Grenfell Tower inquiry and your action plans, did that lead to the actions that were taken with the block of flats on Brayford? And what's the progress with that?
No. It's probably the quick answer to your first part of your question. So no, the recommendations of the public inquiry, I think it's fair to say, opened the sector's eyes to the dangers of external wall systems, particularly the flammable cladding on external wall systems. However, that's not been a direct read across to our desire to take action. So I think it's opened our eyes to the risk. but the taking action is a separate area. In terms of an update on the Brayford, I'm very lucky to have behind me the gentleman who leads our Prevention and Protection Department, so I will defer to him on an update.
Hi, Councillor Smith. Progress is positive. We've been in recent correspondence with the responsible people, the building owners, and we hope certainly by the end of this week we should be able to make some positive steps with regards to considering lifting the prohibition notice.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher.
Thank you very much. Obviously, sitting on district council, you sort of get a feel for other elements of this, and of course we get our own reports back from housing on these issues. And one thing that's come up a couple of times is the lack of fire safety assessors or difficulties in establishing or in employing fire safety assessors, and the need for more training in that area. And I'd just be intrigued to know whether, as a fire service, whether that's something that you're aware of and whether you would agree with. Because my understanding is actually, whilst there's a shortage, of course, the cost of providing fire safety assessments in these things, and that's so vital in making sure these buildings are protected moving forward, and it feels like a weakness in the process at the moment. So I'd just love to get your steer on that.
Yeah, so it's really important to make a distinction between fire risk assessors. The responsible person for any commercial building is required to undertake a risk assessment in relation to fire safety and fire precautions in their building, and therefore they will often employ, where they don't have internal resource, they will employ the services of a fire risk assessor as an external consultant. I think it's fair to say that prior to Grenfell, there were a lot of people who set themselves up as fire risk assessors, and the tragic loss of life at Grenfell, I think, has again shone a light on a fragility in that system for those individuals to be suitably qualified, suitably trained, suitably experienced. And of course, it's the responsibility of the responsible person within that building to ensure that that experience exists. One of the recommendations from the Grenfell Tower Public Inquiry has been to create a pathway to competence. So within the fire and rescue service and the fire and rescue sector, there is a competence pathway for our fire safety auditors. So there'll be the people who come in and judge the suitableness and the sufficiency of that risk assessment. So there is a career pathway for those individuals. There is a desire to create, and in fact there are a number of qualifications now for fire risk assessors to be able to maintain and go through that pathway. So certainly what my advice, or the advice of the sector, would be to ensure that the responsible person's responsibility is to ensure that that qualification or a means of assuring themselves that individual is suitably qualified. But I would agree with you. I think where there were people in the sector who were doing the work, I think they have left the sector now. So while there are less people, I would like to think that the people who remain may be the people who are qualified and suitably experienced.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thanks. Thank you for a really good report. When Grenfell happened, it was less than a week into my term as the Member of Parliament for Lincoln, and I remember waking up and seeing those images on the TV, and the day afterwards I went to Grenfell. I actually went there and took some flowers, and I actually feel quite emotional reading this because I can still remember just the rawness of it. And I think I just wanted to say, I'd looked at page 71 and there's a bit here about the fire service being too much about on the job and not enough theoretical knowledge. I spent 2 years as an MP being Shadow Fire Minister, and I did a lot of work on this, met a lot of different people. That fire happened because of poor regulation in the building industry. And the firefighters who went into that inferno to try and save those people were the heroes on the day. And I just feel a little bit defensive of that. But I suppose really, when something that awful happens, you have to learn from it to do justice to the memory of the people that died. But I think we need to be really clear while we're looking at improvements because of it, that you've got to have, totally get that, those firefighters were heroes, the ones that went in again and again and again to that building, because a lot of them didn't just go in once, they went in multiple times. And we should be very, very grateful that the death toll wasn't actually higher, and it was completely down to deregulation within the building industry. And it was not in no way the fault of the fire service that anybody died. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Lee. I think we will all remember where we were the day after that tragic incident. Certainly, I mean, you're absolutely right. The recommendations are made to government, the construction industry, the British Science Institute. I think what we need to do is reflect, notwithstanding the supreme acts of bravery and courage that happened on that night. I think we need to be quite critical when we reflect on the sector and the way we train our staff, and again, move away from the specifics of that incident. I think we're sometimes doing our staff a disservice if we force them to rely on rules of thumb and heuristics. Rules of thumb and heuristics are fine, providing that you understand the technical stuff that sits behind it, and I'm sure there's direct read across into nursing and the medical professions. Certainly the aviation industry is very similar. You know, it's fine to have a checklist and a mnemonic, but you need to understand the science that goes behind it, and I think that's where we're making sure that we're reflecting on the way that we train our staff. And I think there probably is a realisation that we've moved to flowcharts, checklists and things with, there's a risk that we are teaching people the flowchart and the checklist exclusively, and we are not teaching them the underpinning science that sits behind it. And I think that's where we need to be as senior leaders, quite critical of ourselves and the way we train our staff, rather than the nuts and bolts of the great work that people are doing on the ground.
Thank you. Councillor Brockway?
Thank you, Chairman. A very specific question, actually. I'm very interested in all the learning that's expected. I wonder how it's carried out. Are people expected to do it in their own time? Is time made available? Can they access qualifications on the National Grid for Learning as a result of that? So quite a lot of questions around the learning, which I think is brilliant. But one question too about safety, if I may. I was quite interested on page 75.6 about the different use of low-powered radios and high-powered radios, because it's saying that the lower-powered ones are intrinsically safe, whereas the higher-powered ones are non-intrinsically safe. And I'm wondering why it's necessary to have higher-powered ones that are not safe. Surely somebody somewhere can get you higher-powered ones that are safe. So one question is about the learning and how you involve it, and can they get extra qualifications out of it. And this safe and non-safe radios, it's a very interesting little comment. Thank you.
So I'll address the learning first. I guess it's a mixture of all three. So yes, we provide time for our staff to train, we provide a syllabus, and we provide learning materials. That's an evolution. I think we've still got a journey to do in terms of the quality of some of those learning materials. I think we've probably got a tradition of back in the day, it would have been overhead projector slides that have been transitioned into PowerPoint, which have been translated into e-learning. I think we've got a journey to create some genuinely engaging e-learning, which appeals to people's learning styles, and that's the piece of work that we're doing at the minute. And we've come on some way in terms of that blended learning approach. There is some work that we expect people to do in their own time. For example, for promotion, we would expect people to devote some of their time to their personal development, albeit we give some support in terms of work time and work infrastructure to be able to support that. We are qualifying more of our staff now, so a lot more of our staff, a lot more of our learning comes with a qualification. So most of our levels qualification starts at level 3, which is the equivalent of A-levels in old money. We work through in fire protection. Our inspectors are qualified at level 4 and some at level 5. From an incident command and control perspective, the qualifications start at level 3, Our intermediate middle level of commanders have level 5, and at a strategic level we will hold level 7 qualifications in those areas. Oh, and the apologies, the intrinsically safe, the other part of the question. Clearly it's quite a complicated area. There are very defined standards around what qualifies as intrinsically safe, and clearly the radio will need to meet that standard. And therefore intrinsically safe radios are their power is limited in order for them to meet the standard. That is one of the techniques that the manufacturers use in order to control the intrinsically safe nature of those radios. The reality is there are lots of things in the environment around us which are as likely to cause a spark in some of those situations as us using a radio. So therefore, when we are deciding on whether or not to use intrinsically safe radios or not, we need to weigh up the rest of the environment as well. I mean, clearly, if there's a fire, the environment no longer is intrinsically safe because there's a fire, and therefore that isn't an issue. So we're talking about some very specialised industrial processes that may require intrinsically safe radios to be used. We have almost none of those within Lincolnshire.
What interests me on that is, you know, we think with all the great technology around us, the idea that there is no provision for higher powered radios that are safe. The idea that a higher powered radio creates a spark, whereas a lower powered one doesn't. It's quite difficult for me as a non-tech person to understand that. Can there be any development along those lines encouraged? Because it's an awful thought that somebody needs to go into a space where they need a high-powered radio but can't, because it's putting our firefighters at risk then. It worries me a little, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I can provide you the assurance that within Lincolnshire we don't have any of those areas where we wouldn't be able to use a higher powered radio. I mean, they're still, in the grand scheme of power, they are still quite low power. It's just that intrinsically safe is lower still.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the Water Authority, in communication with the Water Authority, but you're reviewing a formal local arrangement. Just wondered how this will be more effective than what's currently available. Thank you.
So we have a good mechanism for, at the scene of an operational incident, we can contact the Water Authority, ask them to increase the pressure within a water main, and we do that on a relatively regular basis, and that works really well. There is national guidance available for creating almost a concordat with the local water authority, and in effect what we want to do is review that to make sure it remains suitable and sufficient, but I don't think any material changes will occur as a result of that.
Thank you. Any more speakers? No, I think we're okay. I had a slight query, and it's probably not to put you on the spot. Specifically with incidents, has there been any, regarding the improvements and responses to this report, have you had any improved actions and outcomes on actual incidents in the county?
That's a very difficult thing to measure. So we, to try to answer your question, we do operational audit and debriefing of our incidents. We have noticed a change in the way that some of our incident commanders approach that debriefing and that initial the recording of their initial actions and their initial risk assessment as a result of that. The next phase of work we're doing is to strengthen that operational auditing to ensure that we are getting the right support for those incident commanders, so we're comfortable that we're learning lessons from those incidents. What we want to do is make sure that those staff are getting some really high quality mentoring and coaching at those operational incidents as well, recognising that the number of incidents is decreasing. The number of years' experience of some of those commanders has reduced significantly over the last 20 years. We want to make sure that supervisory commanders, as well as auditing the effectiveness of those incidents, they're also providing an opportunity for those commanders to learn through questioning and supportive challenge.
Just to follow up on that, 'cause I was just, while thank you, Ron, was speaking, thank you, I was just racking my brains of the incidents that we've been going through. And we have had a couple of, I can just probably, without going into the details of these, we've had a couple of tangible examples, particularly in regards to where we touched on about the sharing live information from the incident ground into air control. So our incident commander has all the information, and with some of the technical infrastructure we put in place, and also with a deployment and review of a duty officer role that we mobilise to air control to support our control function. We've had a couple of incidents where we've been able to have live streaming of information. So the incident commander on the ground has exactly the same information of the whereabouts of personnel and of the public in regards to some of our buildings, and we've been able to triangulate that. So the whole of the recommendation from Grenfell is to make sure that we've got a live one single version of the truth of what's happening in the incident ground. We've practically played that through in regards to a couple of incidents, and with that support of the training that we gave to our duty officer to ensure that we got the right mobilising, to ensure that they've got a clearly defined role, and some of the technological infrastructure we put in place has been able to operate that quite effectively.
Excellent, thank you both. Well, in that case, I propose that the committee has reviewed the report and has been assured on the progress made by Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue on the recommendations arising from the Phase 1 and 2 Grenfell Tower inquiry reports. Can you please raise your hands if you agree? I think that's again unanimous. Thank you, that is agreed. Thank you both. Item 8 is just the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee work programme. This item is on pages 77 to 86 of the agenda pack and sets out the committee's planned work programme for 25 and 26. The actions required by this committee are to review and agree on the committee's work programme as set out in this report and highlight for discussion any additional scrutiny activity which could be considered for inclusion within the work programme. This report will be presented by Tracy Johnson, our Senior Scrutiny Officer. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no amendments to report to the published work programme. The committee's next meeting is on the 25th of November, where the items currently planned are on page 79 of your agenda pack. So firstly, the committee was sitting as the Crime and Disorder Scrutiny Committee to consider the Crime and Disorder Reduction Strategy. So this item is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to decision by the Executive on 2nd of December. And as the strategy is also part of the policy framework in the Constitution, it will also need approval by the County Council on the 19th of December. Sitting as the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee, the committee will consider a report on trading standards, animal health and welfare and feed activity for 2024-25. It will receive a report on the performance reporting for quarters 1 and quarter 2, so this will cover from April 2025 to September 2025. And it will also consider an exempt pre-decision report on Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue procurement of station-end equipment and mobile data terminal software. And this is prior to a decision by the Executive Councillor for Community Safety and the Executive Councillor for Resources between the 1st and 5th of December. So happy to take any suggestions for the work programme. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Any members have any comments or queries regarding the work programme? Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Chair. And this is something I'd more than happily take offline, but I'm just confused as to why policing matters aren't included in the Community Safety Scrutiny Committee oversight. It seems the clue's in the title, community safety, and yet we don't seem to have any scrutiny over policing matters. So, like I said, Chair, it's something I can happily take offline, but happy to hear other members' thoughts.
Yeah, I can probably assist with that. There's a specific police and crime panel meeting that deals directly with the PCC on those direct policing matters. So this crime and this community safety committee doesn't deal directly with that because this is done in a multi-partnership element or elements that LCC are doing. So police don't get invited to this because the PCC has his own police and crime panel where he is held to account for policing matters. So we're ultimately then just duplicating the conversation, but I say if it might be something that needs to be taken outside to say where does that sit and what can be brought in here, what does need to sit within the police and crime panel.
May I come back, Chair?
Of course.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, but the policing is a specific item on the service bills of residents, which are delivered by Lincolnshire County Council. So I don't understand why there's a separate Police and Crime Commission panel and why Lincolnshire County Council and our members don't have the opportunity to directly scrutinise that panel.
Yeah, my understanding there are members from LCC that sit on that panel and are invited to that panel, but I don't know the details of that, but I can find out.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you both. Yes, it's certainly, I think we'll take it offline. There's some involvement needs to be from community safety, like you say. I think that now concludes the discussion of this item. In terms of the work programme, I propose that we approve the planned work programme for 25 and 26, subject to the consideration of some of the items that we've discussed today. Can you please raise your hand if you agree? Thank you, that is agreed. That now concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you everyone for attendance.